Welcome to Authors Out Loud, a series of discussions with authors exploring their books, delving into the inspirations for their characters, themes, and stories, as well as discussing the craft of writing itself, the trials and victories they experience seeing their work to completion. I am Susan Supak with my co-host, Jean Greenlaw. We're speaking with none other than Brad Meltzer. Brad has done it all. He's a regular on the New York Times bestseller list. The Hollywood Reporter called him one of Hollywood's most powerful authors. He is a prolific writer of mystery thrillers, historical fiction novels, children's books, comic books, and yes, even award-winning Grammy-nominated TV shows like Xavier Riddle and the Secret Museum on PBS and Brad Meltzer's Decoded, and Brad Meltzer's Lost History on the History Channel. Brad's recent release, co-authored with Josh Minch, is titled The Nazi Conspiracy, a little known but true story about a secret Nazi plot to kill FDR, Stalin, and Winston Churchill at the height of World War II. His other books include The Lightning Rod, The Escape Artist, and 11 other best thrillers. As if all of this isn't enough. He also writes nonfiction books, marvelously wonderful books, like the Ordinary People Change the World children's book series, which he does with Chris Eliopoulos. His books have spent over a year on the bestseller list and have been translated into over 25 languages, from Hebrew to Bulgarian. So, if you're unfortunate enough to never have read any of Brad's books, just play Meltzer bingo. Read any of his books and you'll be hooked. And if our visitors aren't sufficiently impressed, there's even a Brad Meltzer doll. Welcome, Brad.
I know I'm going to tell everyone, you had threatened that you bought a Brad Meltzer doll, which I appreciate. I have one here. And I'm clearly still in the mail for you, but I'll be there soon.
Oh, I'm looking forward to seeing you that way as well. Now, full disclosure here, Jean and I are members of your invisible army striking out to do good in the world. And I have to say, after researching your many accomplishments and interests, I'm really in awe. I'm in awe about the fact you're a best-selling author. I mean, that's pretty cool too, but also is just what a wonderful human being you are and how much good you do to help in the world. You had the incredible honor of reading your book, The First Conspiracy, to George Bush Sr. And on his deathbed, I might add, you spearheaded a successful effort to find the American flag raised over the devastation in New York City after 9/11. You're on the board of the Medal of Honor Museum Foundation, something that's near and dear to my heart. And you were recruited by the Department of Homeland Security to brainstorm different ways that terrorists might attack the United States. You're a true patriot. How would you describe this aspect of your life, Brad?
It's madness, really. I'm someone who, I'm the first in my family to go to a 4-year college in my immediate family. So the idea that President Clinton and President Bush wrote me letters saying, we like your novels, or inviting me to a private lunch at the White House in the president's private dining room, not even downstairs where everyone walks on tour, but I got to go upstairs where the Secret Service isn't even allowed to go, into the president's residence, into the private dining room. It was amazing. And just to stop for a moment, let's talk about that moment with President Bush. You know, he passed away, of course, a few years ago. And as you said before, he passed away when he was on what really was his deathbed. They were inviting in, and I couldn't say at the time, but they were inviting some of his favorite authors to come read to him. And I was one of the authors who got the call. Mm-hmm. And I'm in Kennebunkport, Maine at the time. And the Secret Service said to me, listen, you're going to read to him for like 5-10 minutes. He's going to fall asleep. He's sleeping most of the days now. I said, you got it. I'm honored to be here. And they left the room, and I knew this was the end. And it was just me and my wife, President Bush, and his service dog, Sully. And I said to him, sir, you want to read this book? And I brought him a copy of The First Conspiracy, which is about a secret plot to kill George Washington, a true story at the start of the Revolutionary War. And he and President Clinton have both given me really nice blurbs on the book. there was a stack of books on his desk, and that was one of the books there. It looked like I'd been read over and over. I said, "You want to read this one, sir?" He said, "Mm-hmm," because he can't even speak anymore. It's just mm-hmm or uh-uh. And I, sure enough, read from the book. In 5 minutes, he's sleeping. So I'm like, I'll finish the chapter and just kind of sneak out of here. And I get to those words, because this chapter that I brought to read to him was the scene where George Washington has the Declaration of Independence read to his troops for the very first time. And I get to those words we all know. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. And President Bush's eyes pop open, and he's just locked on me. And I get to the end of the chapter, he's wide awake. I say, "Sir, you want to read another chapter?" "Mm-hmm," because he can't speak anymore. He says, "Mm-hmm," as I said, or "Mm-mm." Get to the end of that chapter. "You want to read another, sir?" "Mm-hmm." And another, "Mm-hmm." And instead of being there for 5 or 10 minutes, I was there for an hour reading to him. And to be able to read about our very first president, to at that point, who was the oldest living president of the United States, was one of the most humbling moments of my life. So everything you just mentioned is complete madness to me. It's completely humbling. Just to have a tiny little small role in any one of those things would have been enough.
It's really something. I mean, that's truly, truly something.
Brad, you began writing comic books, which I love. We've talked about how wonderful comic books are. Then you went on to thrillers. Then you wrote children's informational books, and then the adult informational books. That's quite an evolution. It's full of, transitions. Why is that? Is it because you have so many diverse interests, or is it because your mind hops around quickly from one thing to another?
I do think sometimes it's a little bit of my own inability to focus, but I think the truth is I never ever want to just be doing the same thing. That is the scariest idea to me. If I said to you, "Hey, Gene, what's your favorite type of movie?" And you said, "I love independent films with subtitles that are really deep and wonderful." And I said, "Great. You're going to just watch independent movies with subtitles for the rest of your life. You can't see anything else." You'd eventually be like, you'd start to hate what you love. And that's how I feel. If you told me how to write thrillers and it's all I could do for the rest of my life, I'd probably start not liking the job. And what I love is every one of us, we all love independent films that are good, and we love action movies that are good, and we like romance movies that are good, and we like, big budget things and small budget. Like, we like all those things. There's no one thing that is just the be all end all. And for me, it's also simply about finding the right story. For many years, thrillers invaded my brain, and then I had kids. And when I had kids, I was like, I want to write stories for my kids. And then I was like, I found this plot to kill George Washington, and I was like, there's no book in modern times written about it. For 5 years, that thing sat in the back of my head. I used it in a novel, but it was just like a mention here and there. I couldn't shake the story, and I was like, this story I want to tell. And so then I started writing nonfiction books. And so I don't think it's anything more than I just keep finding stories that I want to share, and whatever genre they're in, it's okay. I mean, sometimes I find a story and I'm like, this should be a cartoon, or this should be on live TV. And depending on the best way to tell that story is the thing that I kind of jump to. Yeah.
Would you read a passage from one of your books for
Yeah.
us?
So I brought, it's funny. I'm going to ask you, I have two that I brought, and you're going to tell me which one you want. Because I brought one that I think is going to be the answer just because of who it is Dolly Parton.
Yay.
But I also brought, because it comes out, well, even though you will see this later, but it's coming out right now, is Temple Grandin. And so I leave it to you. I have a section from here. If you like Dolly Parton, yay. Dolly Parton got a yay. So I feel like I should go with Dolly Parton.
Brad, will you tell what happened in the audience when you talked about Dolly Parton was going to be your new book, and you told about I Am Pay having a pop-up?
Yeah. So what happened was we did. Do I have a copy here? When we did I Am Pay, I really wanted to do something special. And for Dolly Parton, I was like, we could do something amazing. We should have glitter on the cover of Dolly Parton. And on I Am Pay, who's this great architect, when you open the book, I want it to be a pop-up so that when he designs the Louvre pops up in the books. And I thought, I am such a genius that I came up with this idea. And my editor then called me and said, hey, genius, your idea for the pop-up book just delayed the I Am Pay book by a year because of supply chain. So the book got delayed a year. They came to me for Dolly Parton, and they said, if your other genius idea about putting in glitter we'll delay that a year. And I said, I got to live without the glitter. So I love that readers have taken our Dolly Parton book and added their own glitter to it now. So people get versions now. So I'm going to read this. This is one of my favorite scenes from I Am Dolly Parton. And it says, in my life, I came from humble beginnings, and that was just fine by me. I was never ashamed of it. It made me who I am. And it gave me the foundations of my life, my faith, my family, and my music. It's okay to be different. It's okay to feel unseen. Sometimes the world won't be cheering for you, but I will be. Whatever mountain gets in your path, keep climbing. It's the only way to see what's on the other side. And then this is the part that I love. It says there's only one thing you got to be in life, yourself. Wherever you are and whatever you are, be authentically that. And the people who look, sound, or think different from you, love them for who they are too. Your dreams are worth dreaming. Your songs are worth singing. Your story is worth telling just as it is. Be proud of who you are and don't ever limit yourself. And it says, I am Dolly Parton, and I see the light that shines in you. And that last line is, of course, on the back. Every book has the moral lesson of what the book's about. And this is all about the light that shines within you. And so that's I Am Dolly Parton by myself and Chris Eliopoulos, our amazing artist, who just draws so beautifully for this book.
Whoever says those books are for children is completely missing the point, aren't they, Brad?
Yeah, I think we sell more Dolly Parton and Lucille Ball to adults than I think we sell to kids. And Temple Grandin too it's amazing to watch when we go. But I have people who tell me I read these books for myself just because they inspire me. And I truthfully write them for myself and for my kids. So I love the fact that people use our books to build a library of real heroes for their kids, their grandkids, their nieces, their nephews. That's the best part to me.
It's such a great message to give to kids, but as you say, to anyone. And we talked about the many different genres that you are involved in. It seems though there is a constant theme that runs through your novels, your historical, your fiction, your thrillers, your books for children. And to me, it's what you have called the true American dream. The notion that when you see someone being bullied, when you see someone being picked on, you say, enough, enough. You stand up and you say, enough. Is that what makes you want to tell your stories?
What makes me want to tell the stories is never the super secret mission. What makes me want to tell a story is I just love telling stories, right? And I've met you both multiple times where I'm not even, we're standing in the backstage or we're sitting at the front of the stage. We were in Dallas that time. And I still talk in story form. I don't answer yes or no. So, but what I realize is my stories have the same themes over and over, and they do overlap. And that story that quote you just gave for me, which was so kind, is, when we were doing the Nazi conspiracy, or when we're doing I Am Dolly Parton, or when I'm doing the lightning rod, I always do at some point say, why are we really doing this book? What's the real point of this? Because there's a million infinite stories to tell. And for the Nazi conspiracy is a perfect example. We all know this, we've heard of FDR, we've heard of Stalin and Churchill. I didn't know there was a secret plot to kill them. But we kept saying, okay, that's titillating to say. We found a secret plot that, we could tell you in a way that no one's told it with, new details that we love. But why are we telling it? And it's exactly what you said. It's just, why are we fighting Nazis in 2023, right? We see the Nazis have marched in Charlottesville. We all wring our hands and we go, I can't believe this is happening today. But when we started researching the book, we found that, it seems like something that should be happening in World War II, not here in America, not here now. But when you look back in the beginning of the war, we found that there was a Nazi rally that took place in Madison Square Garden in the heart of New York City, right? 20,000 people cheering with a giant banner of George Washington surrounded by swastikas. The first speaker at the rally said, if George Washington were alive today, he'd be friends with Adolf Hitler. Why are we fighting Nazis in 2023? Because they never went away. They were right here. They were right here too. They weren't just over there in Germany and or in the Soviet Union or in Europe. And that's why, the Civil War never ended. We're seeing today, World War II never ended. When you beat the bad guys, they don't just go underground. And they don't just say, oh, we're going to switch sides and now we're going to be good guys. No, they go underground, they hide, and they come back. And so to me, that is my American dream, is being able to tell your story, being able to stick up for people. And when they are being pushed around and bullied and picked on, you do, as you said, you say, enough, enough. That is the great lesson of World War II. And if we don't continue to not just tell the story, everyone says, tell the story, and that's all the way. It's not about just telling the story. It's about, you got to use your voice and say enough.
It's good that you're out there doing that, Brad. Thank you.
I have another quote from you. You say that no one is born a hero. What happens is that a need presents itself and the heroes see the need and step forward. Let's talk about your children's book series, which you devised in order to show children and adults like us what needs were there and who stepped forward to meet those needs. You had 2 books in the series that made your wife cry. As Susan said, we're part of your invisible army, so we get your emails. And 2 of your most recent ones made your wife cry. And they're quite unusual in the series because they're not about real people. They're about comic book characters. I am Batman and I am Superman. Why did you include these in your books?
Yeah, we were really trying to show kids the power of their imaginations. And yes, 30 some, now it's 32, I think, real heroes, Dolly Parton, Abraham Lincoln, Rosa Parks, Temple Grandin, our first autistic hero behind me, and Amelia Earhart, George Washington, of course, are stories we need to tell to our kids. But I realized for my own kids and for myself, heroes like Superman and Batman are, they're created by kids too. Superman was created by 2 17-year-old boys, these 2 17-year-old Jewish guys who were in Cleveland, Ohio. It was 2 teenagers, 17 years old, who gave us Superman. And the reason it made my wife cry is because, to me, the most important part of the story is not Superman. The most important part of the story is Clark Kent, because we're all Clark Kent. And we all know what it's like to be born in ordinary and wish we do something incredibly beyond ourselves. And when I wrote that book, I mean, they just were I always say this series is like my soul in book form. And boy, did Batman and Superman, if you want to show kids the power of imagination, look how much those characters have meant to so many people. Look at what they teach us about being good, about helping people, about standing up when someone needs it. I know they're fictional, but they teach us those vital lessons.
And they would not have stayed around for decades and decades and decades if they were not important to each generation coming forward, I think.
No, 100%. The reason why these stories persist is because it's not that they're interesting, it's because they say something about us. Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and Spider-Man and all those characters you love, Captain America, they say something about us. We're a country that's founded on legends and myths, and the legends and myths we love most are our own. But those heroes show us what it means to be good. And look around right now. We need a lot more lessons about how to be good.
In 2 of your somewhat series, you work with someone else. In your books for children, you have an illustrator, and in your informational books about the Nazi conspiracy and so on, you have a co-writer. Could you talk about what it is like to work both with another writer and with an illustrator?
Yeah, it's like a marriage. It really is, because you don't have to agree on everything. But what you do have to do, I think, to have a healthy marriage, or maybe I'm just revealing about what my marriage is you have to have a similar worldview. You got to see the big picture and how you view the world in the same way. And whether it's, Josh Mensch, who's my co-writer on the Nazi conspiracy, on the Lincoln conspiracy, on the first conspiracy, or Chris Eliopoulos, whose breathtaking artwork, you can see over my shoulder also, is so breathtaking. At a personal basis, not that this matters to anything you read in the book, but we view the world the same way. Chris had 2 young boys when we started this series and wanted to give his kids better heroes to look up to. Josh and I both thought we need to talk out about anti-Semitism. We need to talk out against authoritarianism. You're seeing this repeat. Adolf Hitler at the time, and Josh and I have spoken about this at the time, he found this group of native-born Germans, these white native-born Germans who were suffering economically. And Adolf Hitler basically was like, I can make your life better. I'm going to make your life better the way it used to be. And the way he did it is he said, those people, those people are the cause of your problems. And that term, those people, that's a phrase that's repeated decade after decade, generation after generation. Of course, in World War II, it's the Jewish people he's talking about. But look through history. We've seen people do that with the Black community and the gay community, with the immigrant community. It happens all the time now. And you can't just stick up and say, I'm going to only speak when it's my community that's being threatened. You need to stand up for whatever community is being threatened, especially when it's not your own community, or else it just keeps happening again. So Josh and I just both believe that when you see that playbook, when you see someone, why do politicians today work so hard to gin us up and get us angry and make us mad? When a politician says something, it's been proven, when someone says something definitively to you, you believe it to be true. So when someone says those people are the cause of your problems, I immediately go, oh my gosh, those people, I hate those people. But why do politicians want you angry? Because angry people vote. Why on cable TV? They get you so riled up and make you angry? Because angry people make for great ratings. Okay? And just be better than what angers you. Don't just get your information from one place. Don't just get it from one station. I don't care if you watch CNN or Fox News or MSNBC. If you're just watching one of those and you think that you're not an informed citizen, you're just not. You have to realize that you're in an echo chamber and you need to do better and not just look at things that agree with you, because those people are, each is trying to make you angry. So you keep watching more and more and more. And we have to be better than what angers us in the world today. So Josh and I kind of share that worldview. Chris and I share that worldview. And when you work together on that project, now, if that worldview is not the same, you're going to have bigger problems and start arguing over who's right and who's wrong.
Brad, you've had such an amazing life and an amazing career. And I know it's very, very hard to get published and get started in the writer's world, and especially to be as successful as you are. I'm assuming that you have met some people along your journey that have had a great influence on you. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh, of course. I mean, forget about my 9th grade English teacher who changed my life by telling me I can write. I mean, you've heard me tell that story before. I mean, she tried to put me in the honors class and I had some sort of conflict. So she said, here's what we're going to do. You're going to sit in the corner for the entire year and ignore everything I do on the blackboard. Ignore every homework assignment I give. And what she was really saying was, you're going to thank me later. And you're going to do the honors work instead and thank me later. And a decade later, I went back to her classroom. I knocked on the door. She said, can I help you? I said, my name is Brad Meltzer. I wrote this book and it's for you. And she starts crying. And I said, why are you crying? And she said, I was going to retire this year because I didn't think I was having an impact anymore. And I said, are you kidding me? I said, you have 30 students. We have one teacher. And sometimes I think we don't realize the impact that each of us is having on the universe. And so she changed my life. I had the Nazi conspiracies dedicated to a college professor who gave me my love of World War II. I send all of our kids' books. I send to a professor named Carolyn Balducci, who let me take a class in college called Writing Children's Books. And she let me repeat the class 4 different times because I love doing it. I just love create. I said to her, I just want to write children's books for you. She's like, okay, repeat the class. And so I owe those people, and I owe the writers who helped me out in the beginning and took chances on me and gave me words of advice. I don't think, anyone who says they're self-made, personally, I think is a fool, or is at least completely misunderstanding their own history. Nobody can do anything in this world just by themselves. And it may be your family that helps you. It may be a friend that helps you. It may be a stranger that helps you, the very first mentor you get. But none of us are here by ourselves. And I'm very thankful to have so many incredible mentors who push me along the way.
Well, you have such an amazing amount of research in your books. For example, one of your books, you talk about the Army artist at Fort Belvoir, and you have this incredible behind the scenes at the Dover Air Force Base, where the U.S. military service members, the deceased members, are brought in. And I wonder, did your time at Columbia Law School help to hone your research skills? Or is that just something that you've developed in your writing skills?
It's a good question. I think that I think part of it comes from that, but I think part of it just because I'm nosy and persistent and a pain in the I want to know these things. And I think when there was no internet, and I remember being pre-internet, I knew how to raid the card catalog. I just knew. I knew how to get there. I knew how to find the magazine or the newspaper and I knew how to find the footnote and go to the bottom of it. I love that stuff. And I think good readers, good writers come from being good readers. So I think that law school definitely, though, helped me really, really hone the ability to, especially to go online and how to dig things apart and separate the truth from nonsense. I mean, you forget that research is not just diving into a book. Research is also having the critical thinking to know what books are right and what books are wrong. Our Nazi conspiracy book, when we started writing the book, you can find lots of books written about that incident. And they'll tell you it's called Operation Long Jump. You'll find plenty of books, all about Operation Long Jump. But when you really dig into the research, it was never called Operation Long Jump. That's just a fiction that was made later, years after the story was told. And why are those stories changing over time? Because the back in the day, it was the Russians who helped thwart the plot to kill Stalin and Churchill and FDR. The Russians were the good guys in the story. But as the Cold War hit and World War II nostalgia started to peak, the Cold War, when it really hit hard, no one wanted to tell stories in America where the Russians are the good guys anymore. And so the whole story starts to shift and becomes a brand new story about this incident. And you need the critical thinking skills to figure out what parts are true and what parts have been changed because the world has changed around it. And that to me is as vital a part of the research as just saying I've read the most books on the subject. I always have people come to my side and say, I've read so many books on this. I'm like, that doesn't make you the smartest person in the room. It doesn't, unless you've been able to digest them and figure out which are the actual good ones and which are the nonsense ones. You can read as many books as you want.
We've mentioned your invisible army, which we are a part of. Tell us what part of your life your fan group plays. And I know for a fact, because it's happened to me several times, that if I email you, I get an answer from you, not from an assistant. Can you talk a little bit about your fandom?
Yeah, I probably should, I don't know. I just have always, since our very first days, I've always cared about those readers. They've never been readers to me. They've just been family to me. I can tell you the very first fan letter, this is the best way to say it, the very first fan letter I ever got was a woman named Shelley. And when I wrote her back, I was like, tell me more about yourself. You're the first person that ever written me that I wasn't related to. I became friends with Shelley over the years. She invited me to her wedding. I sent her a wedding present. Like, I love her. To this day, it's been 27 years I know her. And she's still a part of my life. And I love that I can come to Dallas. And I know Jesse, who stands in line with you. He's always like one of the first or last, depending if he wants to talk more in line. Now, I know these people. I know in every city I go to, I know that there's Pat in Virginia, who recently got diagnosed with cancer. And she wanted to come to the last Virginia event, but wrote to me privately and said, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm fighting cancer right now. And these people have been supporting me for over 2 decades. How could I not take the time to say thank you? And I love that, obviously the Invisible Army, I can't know every person in it, right? But I try as best I can. And it's grown really, it's a beautiful size now. But what I found about it is that I know everyone has amazing people who read their books. No one has nicer people than we do. Nobody has nicer people. Our people that work with us are, and you two are perfect examples of it, but just proof positive. You put good into the world and you get good back.
That is so true. Do you have any other projects that you haven't done yet or that you're thinking about doing, or are you going to what's next?
Surprise. Yeah, I brought for you, because I wanted to, we gotta have something to show, right? Because we're here. And I wanted to show you, and I know you've seen it because you're in the Army and you've seen it. But for those who aren't, you came here and you spent all this time and you're here now for, something like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half hour, whatever. I don't know how long we're talking yet. I don't know. But the next project that's coming out, we do, so I Am Temple Grandin's our first autistic hero. Then we do one of my wife's favorite heroes of all time. We do I Am Wonder Woman, which is coming out. And then the one that I know you've seen, what we just released in terms of announcing it, but people haven't really seen it yet, is our next kids book after that is I Am Mr. Rogers. And that is like just one of the most beautiful books we've ever worked on. It's truly about one of the kindest people on the planet, and has been just a pleasure to work on. So it opens up with, well, I'm not going to tell, I won't ruin it, but you'll see. Every book opens up with, I am Dolly Parton, I am Temple Grandin, I am George Washington, I am Abraham Lincoln. And so this one should open up with, I am Mr. Rogers. But when I started writing it, I thought, what does Mr. Rogers do the moment you see him? He sings a song to you. So the book opens up with him singing, won't you be, please, won't you be my neighbor? And then you turn the page and it says, I am Mr. Rogers. And it's just one of the best beginnings. And Chris drew him singing right to you. It's one of my favorite openings we've ever done.
Yeah, if we fill the world with more people like him, we won't have any problems, will we?
Amen.
Are you working on another thriller?
Yes. So I'm sorry, I should have said that right. Thank you. So I'm working on the sequel to The Lightning Rod right now. And The Lightning Rod opens up with, I'll give you a taste of it, it opens up with a man drives up to a fancy steak restaurant. He hands his keys over to the valet. The valet takes his car keys, and instead of parking the car, as the valet drives off with the car, he, instead of going to the parking lot, hits the little GPS button on the steering wheel, and he says the magic words, go home. And now the car's GPS plots a route to the man's house. The valet has his car keys, so he's also got his house keys that are on there. And this is not a parking job at all. This is a robbery. And as the valet walks into the house, he steps into the house, and there's a man waiting for him with a gun who says, did you really think we didn't know what you're up to? And he shoots the valet dead. Someone else dies in the midst of it. Their body goes to our hero. And I just ruined chapter 1 of The Lightning Rod for you, but that's chapter 1. But I'm now working on the sequel to that. So it'll be another Zig and Nola novel. My two main characters are Zig and Nola, and I'm working on that right now. That's the newest book. It just takes longer than the kids' books.
Well, we can't wait, and we don't want to keep you away from your writing because we want you to do that. That's awesome.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
You are have been the host of several television shows, and we haven't talked much about those. On the History Channel, you had Decoded. You helped find the missing 9/11 flag and the original Wright brothers design. Tell us what led you into being a part of the television world, and are you going to go back to one of those programs? I know you have a children's program, and I'd like you to talk about that a bit too.
Yeah, so let's talk about TV. I love working in television, listen, to find the 9/11 flag that the firefighters raised to ground zero was, again, one of the most humbling moments of my life. I got to tell the story of the flag. We put it out there for the world to see. We said, if anyone has this flag, please bring it back. And 2 days later, a man walks into a fire station in Everett, Washington State, and says, I saw the show Lost History on TV. Here's the 9/11 flag. I want to bring it back. He didn't even take the $10,000 reward. He just wanted to do the right thing. Right? I told you the people who watch and read our stuff are the nicest people on the planet. We took a year to authenticate it. It's now up and on display in the 9/11 Museum. I've watched a veteran from Pearl Harbor salute that flag. Someone sent me a photo of. Incredible moment of my life. And the kids' books, I love the fact that people see the kids' stories in cartoon form now on PBS Kids. Xavier Riddle and the Secret Museum is our TV show that's on there. It's on after Sesame Street. And I love that people get to see, little versions of Temple Grandin or George Washington we've done, or Abraham Lincoln. We get to put those stories out there. But even though I love doing them and it's fun to tell stories that way, and certainly more people see them when I tell them that way, they're not nearly as fun to me as doing a book. I realized over time, I don't care how many people see it. That's not where my joy comes from. My joy comes from being able to kind of like fully tell the story in the way that I want to tell the story. And sometimes, obviously, I always have an editor. Sometimes it takes an artist. Sometimes it takes a friend. And sometimes it's, just me and an editor. But I love the fact that there's so many different ways to tell a good story. And sure, I'd probably go back to television if we got an opportunity. But I'm just so thankful that I get to write these books and people enjoy reading them.
And we're very thankful that you do. And cannot thank you enough for joining us, Brad. This is just amazing that you are here. And yes, everyone, he's just as nice a guy as he appears to be on this video. He's incredible. And thank you very much.
Oh, thank you both. I appreciate it. Susan, Jean, you are I need to tell everyone, I met you a number of years ago in Dallas. We were at that first event, and you came to that event, you came to another event, and we said, we're going to do this together. And it's been a long time coming. We finally got it together once the 2 tours finished up. So I just appreciate both of you and what you do for your communities. It means more than I can express, and I express for a living.
Well, thank you. And we certainly look forward to you coming back to Dallas, to the Dallas Museum of Art, so we can see you again.
Can't wait.
You'll be back probably for the Medal of Honor Museum.
On the unveiling for that, I'll be back for that. That'll be fun.
Yeah, that's an incredible thing. That's right around the
Weekly
corner
updates.
here for us.
I get weekly updates. It's
Okay.
fun. We watch that thing from nothing into this giant thing out of the ground. So when you go by Cowboy Stadium, it's been a really fun one to work on.
Thanks. That's a terrific effort. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Brad.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. Everyone out there supporting, thank you for reading and supporting the kids' books, the fiction books, the nonfiction books. Again, so kind of you.
Bye-bye.